if a philosopher tells the truth, they die. If a comedian tells the truth, they make hundreds of millions of dollars. So I guess you get to decide which one you want to be, a dead philosopher or a rich comedian. So you might say, like, well, the guy's a fool, but he's wise enough to know what he is. The thing is, a lot of people don't know that they're fools. We think we know a lot of stuff, man, but we really, really don't. And if I were to ask you guys, for example, if you know, good example, what's a game? Can someone give me a definition for a game? Now, if I were to ask you how many of us know what a game is, most of our hands go up. But I'll save you the trouble. You cannot define the word game. Any definition that you give me for the word game will include things that we don't think of as being games. And it will also exclude things that we do think of as being games. So like you might say, like, oh, it's a competition between two people. Okay, so is a game of a solitaire? It's a game of solitaire. You're playing by yourself. Is that a game? Or you might say, however you define it, it's not going to satisfy it. But we all seem to know what it is. Now, that's one example where we don't have a definition for it. But there's a lot of things. If I ask us, where do we get our information from? How do we know the things that we know? Most of the things that we know, we don't actually know. We have a true belief about it. In other words, we might have a belief about something, and it might happen to be true, but it wasn't somehow we came across the knowledge ourselves. We don't really know it to be true. We're just repeating the things that we've heard. And that's not always a terrible thing. In fact, most of the time it's a pretty good thing, so long as the information that you're getting and that you're repeating comes from something, comes from a reliable source, an ethical source. But of course, figuring out what an ethical source is very difficult. So we won't get caught up into those issues, but I'll tell you what foolishness is: when you pretend to be smart. Because if you pretend to be smart, then you lose the opportunity to learn. But also, if you pretend to be smart as you might think that you are, people who actually are knowledgeable are going to sniff you out, man. They're going to sniff you out. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got as a teacher, it's a little bit different, but when I was a first-year teacher, I didn't have my own classroom. I did travel to, all my classes were in different classes, so I did travel to 6 different classrooms, which was always really funny on the 1 through 6 days. But there was a teacher who told me, whatever you do, just be like whoever you are outside of class, be that same person inside of class. Don't have a distinction between the two people, because if you're fake in class, they're going to sniff it out. People are going to know that you're fake. And it was obvious because it's true in life as well. If you pretend to know a lot about, I don't know, like auto mechanics, if you go to someone who actually knows auto mechanics, and they're going to sniff you out pretty quickly. And they're going to know that you're a fool. And so it's foolish to pretend to know stuff that you don't know, because again, you lose the opportunity to learn, and you also lose the opportunity. Well, I guess you gain the opportunity of looking like a complete idiot in front of people. Now, it's not only will people think that you're a fool, but they're also going to think that you're a liar, and your reputation just takes a big giant dump. So what's a fool? Knowing when to act clueless, like I do. So the word fool here, probably facetious. By the way, generally speaking, what is a fool? Yeah. Do you know what that means, where it comes from?
No.
It's to act foolish, but yeah. In other words, a fool is a type of person.
No.
Yeah. I know you've all seen them before. It's the clowns who entertain kings. The jester. They come in, they wear weird outfits, and they juggle and stuff like that. You've seen those in cartoons and things. And when you watch a play, well, actually, we'll just make even a comedian. What's a comedian's job? Make people laugh. True-ish. But there's a deeper job there too. What else does the comedian do besides make you laugh? Entertain. True. And when they make you laugh and they entertain you, they're doing something really, really deep and really, really important. And if you're a class clown, you need to know this, man, because you have a severe responsibility. When you watch comedians, think about who some of your favorite comedians are. what they're doing is they're making you laugh, but they're also telling you the truth. You know that jokes usually tell some kind of truth to them? And they tell a really severe truth, a really harsh truth. And that's why they have to make you laugh. Because if I come in and I tell you something really harsh, you're probably going to reject it. I mean, this is, we don't like hearing it. People, why do you have to say it that way? But if Dave Chappelle comes in and tells you a joke and tells you the exact same thing and makes you laugh, then you can get away with it. Like an example would be, like if you go back to like kings and queens, that's what the jester would do. Somebody would walk in and tell the king, the people are starving because of your policies. There's a famine in the land. While you sit here at banquet, your people are starving. Get your crap together. And the king would say, thanks for your input, and have the person executed. Next. And then the jester would come in, dressed all funny, and would laugh and do like a deep bow and say, my lord, fantastic news from the realm. So many have died from starvation that we now have more food for everyone who's alive. And then the king would laugh, and everyone would laugh, like, okay, I get it. People, I need to fix some things. If you make people laugh, they're going to love you. And even if you tell them the truth. I wonder how many of you have ever heard jokes before and you've walked away and been like, it's kind of true though. If someone tells you a joke and it has no connection to reality, it just isn't funny. It has to have a connection to reality. And that doesn't mean that necessarily like what they're saying is 100% true, but they're telling you something true. There's a kernel of truth in there, or they're telling you their truth. I hate that phrase, but I'm saying like the truth as best as they possibly understand it. If you just say stuff that's just not true or just so off the wall, it isn't necessarily entertaining, especially not for very long. But you're going to notice that probably some of your favorite comedians, your favorite content creators who make you laugh, they're probably telling you something that you can relate to, something that's true, something that corresponds to reality. And so if you're somebody who's funny, you get to tell the truth in a way that nobody else gets to tell the truth. You can tell the truth. I mean, if a philosopher tells the truth, they die. If a comedian tells the truth, they make hundreds of millions of dollars. So I guess you get to decide which one you want to be, a dead philosopher or a rich comedian. And so a fool then is when you get to act clueless, because you're not, but you get to act like it. And so the fool here is something facetious. What's a fool? What's a jester? What's a comedian? So the person who we think of as being foolish, the person that we think of as being the clown, they're the person who's delivering truth. They're actually changing minds. They're influencing. They're doing some amazing things because they have the ability to joke. And notice that a lot of times comedians act silly, and they'll even like put themselves down a lot. But I can say that when I've listened to interviews with comedians, like especially high-level comedians, I've never heard one before who was stupid. Like what's his name? Fluffy Enrique. What's his name? The fat dude. Calls himself Fluffy. Gabriel Iglesias, yeah. I heard an interview with this guy. It was incredible. He was on a business podcast. He was talking about the business of his business and how he operates it, how he executes it. That guy's really, really involved in his business. And the guy is brilliant in terms of how he monetizes it. And he's explained before. He says, my act has a shelf life. He realizes that. The stuff I tell, he said, they come from my life, and there's only so many things. People are eventually, I'm not going to be making the money I'm making right now. It's going to decline. And he's realistic about it. And so he was talking about his investments and ways that he moves money around and how he maximizes what he presently has. He's even talking about, after his shows, he does these meet and greets where anybody who kind of comes, he will sit and take a picture with them, shake their hand and everything. And he even has it down to this science of someone who's nearby with hand sanitizer. So he knows, they can step in, so they can make the process go really quickly. Why? Because he's saying in 15 years, 20 years, I'm not going to be as popular as I am now, but I will still be able to do like casino shows and things like that, and people will show up because they'll remember taking a picture with me 10 years ago or 15 years ago. And they'll be like, oh, I got a picture with this guy, and they'll show up because of that. He's even thinking that far down the road. So yeah, he tells you the truth, he makes you laugh, but that's because he's incredibly smart too. And it takes intelligence to develop insights that you can then, of course, share with your audience. And you have to know who your audience is, and you have to tell it in a way that connects with them. Because, well, that's part of the whole show. You're part of it. You can relate to it. There's a reason that a lot of Mexican people like George Lopez, because he tells a lot of Mexican-centered humor. It's stuff that Asians would listen to and go, you can still find it funny, but you don't relate to it in the same way because cultures are different or whatever. So they're also very smart, about connecting with their audience, knowing who they are and connecting with them, but still also being broad enough that anybody can find them funny, just not funny in the same ways. It takes a lot of intelligence to do stuff like that, man. Like George Lopez, I've heard interviews with him too. Guys just when they drop the facade of the comedian and they're serious, these guys are, a lot of them are, I've never heard one before who wasn't just freaking brilliant. Like Kevin Hart, incredibly smart dude, unreal. And so they actually, then do you get it now? Not really. But what is elation? Just me. I am elation. I'm excitement. I am these things. Probably because it's part of being the fool. Part of being the fool. To be happy and joyous. Why? Because somebody said, when you're the fool, nobody expects much out of you. When you're the fool, nobody expects much out of you. And so what are you free to do? Most things. Because if you screw it up, what are people going to think? Well, they already think that you're the fool. And if you just succeed a little bit, well, then people are blown away by it. But it gives you a lot of opportunities because nobody also ever sees the fool coming. Nobody ever sees the clown coming. Everyone always just assumes, they're just the fool, they're just the clown. And then suddenly they strike and you're blown away by it. You never saw them coming. And so if you're somebody who is always puffing up to pretend to be smart, everybody with a mind anyway is looking for you because they know you're ambitious. You're pretending to be something because you want to be something. But you're also going to do stupid things because you think so low of yourself that you really want to prove it, and you'll take stupid gambles. And so if someone comes through and they're, especially as adults, and they're puffing themselves up in ways I know they're not true, I watch out for them because I know they're ambitious. And I know that they're going to strike whenever they possibly can because they want to prove something to themselves. So you need to be careful with people like that. Also be careful with people who are foolish. People who are foolish are usually, not always, but usually way smarter than they're pretending to be. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques?